to be honest, I was going to wait to record this video and do a proper analysis of the Democratic debate that's happening tonight. But after about 20 minutes in, the Republican in me was screaming and I had to turn it off. I just could not believe some of the idiotic remarks that were coming out of these candidates. It was driving me crazy. So right now I'm going to go on a little bit of a rant about something a lot of us feel very passionate about. And it's probably been a long time coming for this channel. So I'm just going to go ahead and get this out of the way, so to speak. So what really blows my mind is how anti-gun some of these candidates are. Now, the debate, it seems like they were going back and forth about which candidate is going to be taking away our rights more effectively than the other one. And what absolutely blows my mind is that Bernie Sanders was somewhat bragging about having a D- from the NRA, like that was a good thing. The NRA is protecting our Second Amendment rights. And so having a D-, that just tells me he's having a D- in protecting our Second Amendment. So what really bothers me is that the candidates all support this federal gun control plan. Now, I'm going to agree in some places, in some cases, yes, you're going to need expanded gun control over other places. But that's exactly the reason we can't have federal gun control. A one-size solution from the government is never as effective as it being implemented in a state-by-state basis. Let's stop and think about it from a logical standpoint. A state like Montana is not going to need the same gun control laws that a state like New York or California is going to need. A state like New Jersey is going to have different needs than Florida. So it makes no sense whatsoever to try to enforce a one-size-fits-all solution on every single state. This is something that would be best left to the states. The Democrats' philosophy seems to be to expanding to bigger government, to getting more government involved in everyday American lives. They don't seem to realize or even care that no government agency is efficient. No government agency is actually good at doing their job. It's bloated, it's ineffective, and a lot of times it costs a lot more than a state solution would. Yet every single Democrat on that stage is in favor of expanding federal background checks, federal gun control, federal gun laws. Now, it just doesn't make sense. If you actually stop and think logically about the solution, the federal government is never the solution. I think in a lot of ways, the Republicans, on one hand, a lot of the Republican candidates go to the extreme and say no gun control laws whatsoever. I don't think that's always the best. You see, certain areas are going to have inherently higher crime rates based off demographics, based off socioeconomic status of the area. They might need a different gun solution, but enforcing a one-size-fits-all is just never the answer, and it should never be the solution. And what really bothers me, Martin O'Malley was talking about how you don't need an AR-15 for hunting. Nowhere in the Second Amendment does it talk about it being used for hunting. Nowhere, not once in the Constitution are the words hunting even mentioned. So this idea that the only responsible reason for owning guns nowadays is for hunting is totally a lie. It's totally this made-up fantasy that these liberal agenda people want to live in. Nowhere does it define why we have to own guns. It just it defines that we will be allowed to. And these Democrats, these candidates, seem to be sitting up on stage talking about how they're going to be taking away our rights that the forefathers, thankfully, were smart enough to think about. You know, in a lot of ways, this is going to sound crazy, but in a lot of ways, the Second Amendment is the ultimate check of power by the government. It's been said over and over again that if the government fears the people, then there is liberty. If the people fear the government, then there is tyranny. I believe that's a Jefferson quote, but it's exactly right. The Second Amendment is the ultimate check of power on the government. It's the ultimate sort of, if the government grew to the state where it was tyrannical, it would allow the people to rise up and reestablish a democracy again. It is literally the ultimate check of power. And yet we have Democrats in office and Democrats running for the highest office in our country who want to dismantle this check of power. I don't know if Democrats themselves just believe that the government is a good thing, that they trust in the government, but I think a lot of Americans don't put faith in the government. So it's beyond me why they would want to remove their means of actually keeping the government's power in check. Additionally, what bothers me is how Democrats on the stage were willing to go after gun manufacturers for injuries caused by their guns. Now let's stop and think about this. Hillary Clinton used a statistic that I believe it's 90 people a day are injured by guns. Okay, in the United States, about 120 to 130 people a day are killed by cars. Yet we don't go after Ford, we don't go after Toyota, we don't go after any car manufacturer because their cars killed somebody. We don't even blame the car, we blame the driver, we blame the alcohol, we blame something else. Yet when guns are injuring 19 people a day, the Democrats want to go after the gun manufacturers themselves. They seem to want to blame inanimate objects for people's actions. Yeah, we have a problem in the United States, but it's not a gun problem. It's a mental health problem because you inherently have to be mentally unstable to go on a killing rampage. No healthy, sane human being will do that. So yes, the problem is mental health. It is not the guns. The guns are a tool. They are not pulling the triggers themselves. So as far as I'm concerned, going after gun manufacturers will do nothing except they're trying to force gun manufacturers out of business. That is their ultimate goal. You know, if they can get Glock, if they can get, any of these gun manufacturers out of business, as far as they're concerned, they've done their job. They have limited the Americans' access to arming themselves and protecting themselves from threats against their homes and from threats from the government. So this going after gun manufacturers for what other people do is not only insane, but it is just a giant ploy by the liberals themselves to eventually weed out guns. Let's be honest. Let's be 100% honest. If Obama, if Clinton, if Bernie could actually and reasonably have a chance to take away every gun in the United States, you can bet that they would do it. Because I don't understand it. They just, I really don't understand it. They seem to be, I believe they have good intent. I believe they actually want to save American lives. But they're totally ignoring the actual cause, and they're totally ignoring the fact that a majority of the gun violence in the United States is gang related. It's mental health related. Taking away the guns will not stop criminals from obtaining them. We've seen that time and time again. Guess what? Marijuana in 47 or 46 states, I forget what the actual number is illegal. Yet there's a thriving black market, and I could walk down the street probably 10 minutes and find someone who will sell me weed. If you outlaw a certain type of gun, if criminals really want to get it, they will. So who's the one who's actually not going to be able to use that gun? It'll be any gun owner who actually is law abiding. But those law abiding gun owners, they didn't pose a threat to anyone in society in the first place. It's just the Democrats are trying to go after the wrong people. They're trying to use a one-size-fits-all solution, which most people are willing to admit the government's inefficient and ineffective, yet they seem to want to expand it farther, waste more of our money trying to enforce something that is not going to help whatsoever. And they're they're endangering our fundamental Second Amendment right. And so after I saw that on the debate, I just had to turn it off. I literally cannot stand any of those people. The matter of the fact stands. They have good intent, but it's poorly executed, and it will endanger our Second Amendment right.